By the time investigators finally grasped how deeply the mafia had penetrated the global financial system, the trails had already vanished. The money wasn't burned, hidden in caves, or stuffed into mattresses. It was floating, dissolved into Swiss vaults, Vatican accounts, Luxembourg holding companies, and shell businesses scattered across continents. The mafia didn't just run a criminal empire. It engineered a parallel financial universe so polished, so efficient, that for decades it blended seamlessly into the legitimate economy. Welcome to Money Moves, where money, power, and the shadows between them collide. Our story begins in Sicily, a sun-baked island at the crossroads of civilizations. Through the centuries, empires conquered it. Romans, Arabs, Normans, Spaniards, but none left behind stable institutions. By the time Italy unified in the 1800s, Sicily remained impoverished and isolated. The state was distant, corrupt, and often hostile. Law was a commodity that could be bought. Justice was a luxury no one expected. In that vacuum, a new authority emerged. Not a government, but a network of families. A brotherhood built on reciprocity, fear, and silence. The first mafiosi were not the cinematic mobsters we think of today. They were intermediaries. They protected citrus growers, guaranteed contracts, secured shipments, collected debts, and ensured that business happened in a land where courts were slow and police were unreliable. But their services came with a price. The piso, a protection tax. Reviews to pay, and your harvest rotted, your workers disappeared, or your home burned overnight. Slowly, protection evolved into domination. A service became a system. By the late 19th century, every corner of Sicilian life paid tribute to someone, from Palermo's waterfront to the rugged hills of Corleone. The mafia didn't simply steal. It organized. It settled disputes, controlled politicians, decided elections, and inserted itself into every sector of the island's economy. Violence was its language, but management was its purpose. And like any shrewd business, it diversified: land, livestock, citrus, smuggling. Money circulated constantly. Nothing stayed idle. His enforcer, Cesare Mori, waged a brutal campaign. Thousands were arrested or chased into exile. For a moment, it seemed the mafia was broken, but it was merely dormant, waiting. World War II changed everything. When Allied troops landed in Sicily in 1943, they desperately needed local contacts who understood the island's terrain and loyalties. They turned to men with influence, the remnants of the mafia. In the United States, Luciano used his connections to secure American ports and smooth the Sicilian invasion. In return, his prison sentence was quietly reduced. With war as its cover, the mafia resurfaced, legitimized by necessity. After liberation, Sicily was flooded with reconstruction funds. Roads, bridges, housing, billions poured in from Rome and Washington. And wherever money flowed, the mafia followed. It controlled votes, mediated contracts, financed construction firms, and inserted itself into local government. The rural clans transformed into urban businessmen in tailored suits. They built companies, won public tenders, and moved profits through elaborate real estate networks. The mafia was no longer a gang. It had become a corporation. By the 1950s, Palermo's skyline bristled with cranes. Locals called the frenzy the Sack of Palermo, a pillaging carried out with bureaucratic paperwork instead of guns. Entire neighborhoods were demolished and replaced with cheaply built apartment blocks. Controlled by mafia-linked firms, public money turned into private fortune. But the true transformation was still coming. Heroin. In the 1960s, Sicily became the critical link in the international heroin pipeline. Morphine base from Turkey arrived by boat, was refined in secret Sicilian labs, shipped through Marseille, and sold on the streets of New York. The profits were staggering, and enormous piles of cash needed safe harbor. This is when the mafia became not just violent, but financially invisible. Swiss banks, Luxembourg holding companies, Panama shells with no directors, hotels and vineyards bought through anonymous trusts. Money moved through places where questions were never asked. By the 1970s, The mafia's financial network intersected with powerful allies, politicians, bankers, and one institution with near-sovereign immunity: the Vatican Bank, the Vatican's financial arm. Officially, the Institute for Religious Works operated outside Italian jurisdiction. It could move money globally, shielded by diplomatic status. Enter Roberto Calvi, the ambitious chairman of Banco Ambrosiano, a man later nicknamed God's Banker. Calvi built an offshore empire of secret companies stretching from Luxembourg to the Bahamas. Billions passed through these ghost entities. Some of it belonged to political parties, some to the Vatican, some to the Mafia. When Banco Ambrosiano collapsed in 1982 with $1.3 billion missing, Calvi fled Italy in terror. Days later, he was found hanging under Blackfriars Bridge in London, pockets stuffed with bricks and cash, officially a suicide. Widely believed to be a warning. The Mafia didn't issue receipts, and it didn't forgive betrayal. The scandal revealed something the world preferred not to see. Organized crime, high finance, and political power were interwoven far more deeply than anyone admitted. The Vatican quietly compensated creditors. Officials resigned. Investigations fizzled. But the machinery of shadow finance endured. As violence surged in the 1980s, assassinations, bombings, internal wars, the Mafia realized bloodshed threatened the one thing it valued most: money. A new generation emerged, one that wore suits instead of leather jackets. They replaced hitmen with accountants. Their battlefield was the balance sheet. Their weapon was the wire transfer. By the 1990s, Italy's Anti-Mafia Commission estimated that organized crime generated over $100 billion, a year nearly 7% of the national economy. That made the Mafia, as a whole, Italy's largest private enterprise. And when Italy cracked down, the money simply moved. London became a favorite. Switzerland, Luxembourg, the Caribbean. Each new crackdown made the Mafia smarter, teaching it how to conceal ownership through layers of companies no investigator could untangle. By the 2000s, Mafia money was so deeply woven into legitimate businesses that economists struggled to draw the line between lawful and unlawful capital. And it wasn't just the Sicilian Mafia anymore. The ndrangheta, camorra, Russian networks, South American cartels, all adopted the same methods. Crime globalized. Today, experts estimate that 2 to 5% of global GDP is laundered every year. Trillions. Some criminal. Much of it simply hidden, but the architecture behind it: offshore entities, anonymous ownership, silence for sale, is the same blueprint the Mafia refined decades ago. The uncomfortable truth is that organized crime didn't corrupt capitalism. It understood it. It exploited its weakest points: opacity, leverage, and the hunger for liquidity. The Mafia's greatest innovation wasn't violence. It was integration, blending dirty money into clean systems until no one could tell the difference. Their legacy is everywhere in offshore trusts, shell corporations, untraceable transfers, and opaque investment funds. They proved that secrecy could be a business model, and trust could be weaponized. The Mafia didn't destroy capitalism. In many ways, it perfected it. If this changed how you see power, hit subscribe. History doesn't whisper, it warns. Let me show you where to listen.